This is third time lucky. I'm not doing very well today. I think I'm rather tired actually. I had a very difficult time last week. With a very difficult time mentally. My mental body's been cleared out apparently, so I'm pretty exhausted. But I get fidgety and I got nothing to do today, so I thought I'd do a video. I got so many I could do, as you know, but this one I thought, oh no, I've got to do a continuation of my house moves because the next one's equally disastrous, if not more so. So I'd already had a house move from the flat to a three-bedroom terrace house, which was too big and too expensive, and I wanted to get back to roots in the Midlands, Nottinghamshire, which is where I was born. Wanted to get back to it, although I don't know anybody up here now. It was just I don't know, to get back home. I was fed up with the energies in Bristol, my divorce and everything else, you know, and I wanted to get back home, I suppose, which is a bit silly because I didn't know anybody. Anyway, I decided to take the train. I had a young lover friend that was going to drive my GTI up for me, and he had arranged for the move, so I had this van turn up with all this, I don't know, anyone's moved house, you know what it's like. You seem to have more stuff than you thought you had. And this is a privately run thing. And they had to drive 300 miles and everything was accounted for. And at the last minute, apparently, my silly, nasty, horrible husband, he left a double wardrobe from my daughter's bedroom. She'd been staying with him. Left it on the pavement for these guys to fit into their van. And it was a bit much, really. Anyway, I got on the train and I burst into tears. My dad, I think I've done a video about this. My dad put his hand on the window and I just burst into tears. I felt so much love from him, and he was a very quiet sort of man. He didn't want me to go, obviously. He loved me very much. I don't know where Mum was. I don't think she could handle it. Anyway, the woman said to me, "You're all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just leaving home." In my 40s I was then. No more than that. I had my 50th birthday. Gosh, I was in my 50s. Gracious me, I didn't realise. You don't realise you're getting old, you know. You don't realise it until you look at yourself. Think, where's that girl gone, you know? And people look at you, especially young people. They look at you as though you're something from out of the dark ages. You forget you're getting older. You look older. You are older. You don't feel it yourself. Anyway, I got on the train and got to this place called the Lodge. It was called the Lodge in Newark, Nottinghamshire, and it was on the A46, which is a single or a dual carriageway, but not just a narrow A46. It goes all the way down from the West Country to the north, and the traffic never stops. It's a very well-known lorry route, well it was then, and there's lorries up and down, and I think they stop about 3 o'clock in the morning for a brief respite, then they start again. And the bedroom, well, the house itself was right on this A46, big double gates. It's a bit like a fairy house, a Hansel and Gretel house. It's a very, very pointed roof, typical Lincolnshire, you know. And it was on the A46. It belonged to the people who got on that old schoolhouse actually. But this was like called the Lodge, and I was meant to be looking after the whole place. Well, I wasn't really. But the double gates, I had to close the double gates at night, and that was quite a performance because it was traffic up and down, up and down. And I got there, I got the train, and I got there. I thought I had seen it before, obviously, but when I got there on my own, with no luggage, because just overnight stuff, you know, and a few sandwiches. I thought, oh my God, what have I come to? Because it was completely empty. Was there central heating in that time? I think they put central heating in, I'm not sure, can't remember. But it was bleak, cold place on this this traffic. And there's no furniture, of course. There was a little red telephone in the middle of the floor, and the phone went, it was my dad, bless him. "Are you all right, lovey?" I'd got there, but it was disgustingly dirty. They hadn't cleaned it. Every shelf was covered in mice droppings. It was dusty. And I rang the agent. "Oh, should we meant to do that?" "Well, could you do it now because I'm here?" So they sent round a cleaning lady who did the best she could, but I mean it wanted several cleaning. It was huge, a huge place. I don't know what I was doing there really, except it called me, and it was in Newark, and I only found out quite recently, really. Well, not recently, my mum's already died, but she apparently spent time there in the chemist working there, so it's obviously familiar territory in a way. But I didn't know a single soul, not a single soul, and his traffic was up and down and sleeping at night. Well, I've done a video called The Haunting, which is a bit of a nightmare because this was right on the A46. There was nobody about. Sash windows, and you could lock them, but I mean, I don't know why I didn't feel unsafe. I've always felt safe. I've always felt I've been looked after, but there was a little bit of an upstairs, but it was kind of a loft. So I had my computer or my word processor at the time there, and my little mystical, I had a single bed up there, and my books and stuff, and that was where I used to retreat to. Wooden stairs, a huge kitchen. But it's so cold, so very cold. I think the central heating was in, but it was very, very expensive, so I never really felt warm. So that was the lodge house, and it had the gardens outside. Well, there was a driveway from the front gate down to the bottom. It was like a schoolhouse, and I had a nice garden. And when I was digging the garden, I found some baby bones. They were baby bones. They weren't animal bones. They were human bones, and they were little tiny bones. And I thought, gosh, that's the child been buried. This was a Victorian house, you see. Victorian. In those days, if you had a baby you didn't want, and or it died or whatever, you put to bury it in the back garden. And now these little bones, I thought, what do I do with them? What do I do? So I got my prayer book and went into my high priestess mode, put my robes on, and I did a little funeral rite over these bones. Honestly, if you could see me standing there doing these prayers over these little bones. But it was definitely a baby had been buried. The whole place was very haunted. I've done a video called The Haunting, which I might put a link up for you later on. But the whole place felt very strange indeed. It was haunted. And I don't know if I felt lonely really. It was you had to drive to the shops. When I got out of the front gate, you had to turn right into the town, Marks and Spencer's and so forth. But there were no local shops. You did have to have a car to be there. And of course, I didn't have a car for the first day until my lover friend brought it up. He loved it because it was a GTI. He loved it, and stopped for a little while. Brought my car up, and I think my daughter came up the following day with some friends to help me unpack. But it was. Again, I don't know what I was doing there really. It was an old place, and it was hot, cold, and it was haunted, and but it was a challenge, and it had character, a bit like me. So I had lots of fun. I still got to know people. Of course, I put an advert in the paper for somebody who was interested in mystical things, and I had this girlfriend called Sue. And she came round and we got together, and she was from Halifax. I think I've done a video on, yes, I have done a video on Sue. It's called The Only Friend, and she and I used to chase after the same single men in the paper. It was only a small town, and so of course we kept meeting the same men and comparing notes. So this lodge house had an open fire. That was one good thing I liked about it. I used to have logs to live on. I had a huge shed. I used to have logs. I will go and get them, probably coal and logs, and make the fire run. It was really lovely because at night time, you pull the curtains across. It was so isolated, really. I mean, people used to stop. The door used to go. Somebody would knock on the door. Can I use your phone? Can I use your map? It was like a pit stop, because it was just off the roundabout. Anybody knows that area, there's a huge roundabout, and it goes north and south, and you can get off the roundabout onto the A1 into London. So people would, travellers, reps, so forth, and traffic in the morning, it was chock-a-block, it never stopped. And people would stop, wanted the toilet. One day a man knocked on, almost came rushing in. Can I use your toilet? Can I use your toilet? And he went straight upstairs. Obviously he had a bit of a panic on. I didn't like to go and look in case he'd done a mess on the floor, but it was a very strange experience, and he rushed out again without a thank you or paying me. So he obviously was in traffic, and he thought, oh, there's a house over there, I'll pop in there and use their toilet. And of course, night time, well, there was this lay-by just outside the house, and what used to happen in that lay-by was no odds to anybody. I used to hear all sorts of things happening, all sorts of things going on. And I had to go out there and close up these gates, huge iron gates, you know. It was a very posh address, the lodge. People used to think I lived in a very posh address. So it was a very interesting time, but I was there 8 years. 8 years I was there, and lots of things happened. I had some very interesting times, you know. Lots of things happened. My daughter used to come and stay sometimes, but it was a bit. I don't know. It was at the I got there. It was so dirty, you know. I needed cleaning out, and I don't know. I suppose it was Victorian and very haunted. I could feel it was haunted, but it wasn't the frightening sort of haunting. It was just old, full of old spirits, I suppose. So yeah, and I used to come out there. My GTO came up eventually to come out and turn right and go to town. I had a good time actually, because the Japanese master lived not far away. I think I've told you a story about the Japanese. I have done a video on the Japanese master, and he was the one I saw in my dreams that called me up. He was wearing this, you know, they used to wear these white sash bands, white sashes around their middles, Japanese outfit. And I saw him in my dream, and he was calling me up. And I found him. I found him when I came to see the house first of all. He lived in Southall, which was a few miles away, and he gave me a gift of a tape recorder that he'd made, a tape that he'd made, and some lunch. And he had a little garden, Japanese garden, it was a Zen garden. He designed it himself. It was fantastic. It was a lovely waters and waterfalls and bridges, and it was everything. It was perfect because the Japanese are very good at gardens, and I used to go down there on a Sunday sometimes and clean up the Zen garden with other people. We had a lot of fun actually. He made the most wonderful scones. And I used to go and see him on a Friday night for spiritual practices. He shouted at me once, but he was a very strict master. I've actually talked to him since then in spirit. So there was a spiritual master. The town of Newark is lovely. It's got a train station. I wanted to get back there. It's got a train station. You can get into Lincoln, into London. It's a central point. It's the A1 for London. You can get places. Here I'm isolated. There's nothing. I can't go anywhere or do anything. But with this Newark, Midlands, it's a lovely town. It's a bigger town than what I am here, and a nice market and everything, and I got a Waitrose. So I'm going to try and get back there when I feel a bit better, which I don't at the moment. Feel a bit better and get moved, you know. But moving again. I've been here 8 years. I seem to be in every house about 8 years. The next one I might do a video on, that was the equally disastrous, where I met my lover who lived next door, who had dementia. I think I've told you about him, haven't I? So that was the next move. No one, it was the one after that. This is why I've got no money left, because I mean, you know they're rented. You know what it's like if you rent somewhere. You've got to. That's another thing I wanted to mention. Anyone that's thinking of renting, watch the tenancy. If you've got a 6 months freehold, you're okay. If you've got a 6 month short hold, you're not okay, because they want you out after 3 months. I was, well, no, they want you out after 6 months actually, but most of them try and get you out after 3. You get it all done up and lovely. You probably put a bit of paint on the walls, make it all nice, and then landlord wants you all out, because that's why they make their money, to get you out as quickly as they can and get somebody else in. You have to find a month's money ahead, a month's what they call bond. So you've got, say it's £400 a month, you've got to find £1,000 before you start, and then once you're in, you've got to think about moving again. So tenancy is freehold. Freehold is you can stay as long as you like. Short hold, you have to be out very quickly, and I've been ripped off. I've learned so much. I could do a video on all this stuff. You know, I'm a kind of a do-it-yourself citizens advice bureau. I've had so many experiences and done so many things. Well, I think that's why I'm doing these videos, to pass on information, because you know people are. Well, looking for, you don't want to go to Citizens Advice Bureau. I've been to them several times. They're very good, but sometimes, you know, you just want information, don't you, about things from somebody else. So I've been there, done the housing benefit, done the housing, done the short hold, this, that and the other. But this lodge house was privately rented, and the rent wasn't too bad, because of course it was in the middle of nowhere, and I could manage that at the time. And then I became very, very ill. Have I told you about that? What time was it? Oh Lord, it's 40. Oh damn, I was going to tell you about my breakdown. I had a real breakdown. a real breakdown there off my head. Anyway, darlings, I'm going to leave you now. I'll do another video about my next move. If you'd like to, I don't know. See you later. Bye.